Bruh, I stayed up all night for this conference and I got exactly what I expected. So let's give a synopsis really quickly. The Nintendo Switch presentation. Nintendo had a big presentation talking about the Nintendo Switch. Now, they were hush hush on news after the reveal, and they said they were going to have a reveal in January. So finally, push comes to shove. They get on stage, they present the Switch, and in my opinion, in my honest and humble opinion, I believe that this press conference was very mediocre. Compare it to any other conference you've seen over the year at E3, stuff like that. This conference was bare bones, very mediocre, doesn't even deserve the praise that it's getting, to be honest, because some features on the Switch are complete and utter nonsense. So, I'm going to get right into this. As you can already tell by the title and by my voice alone, I am not on the hype train for this. I'm not buying into the Nintendo Switch. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to give my perfect reasons as to why. So I jotted down some notes. Also, I apologize if my voice sounds really just groggy and raspy. I had to stay up at 11 p.m. for this. So, yeah, it really was very annoying staying up for something that wasn't worthwhile. So, let's get into the console information first. Number one, from what I see on my notes, is that there was no solid specs talked about with the Nintendo Switch. So, that immediately tells me that Nintendo doesn't sound too confident in the performance of their console. I suspect it's going to be weak, like everyone else is. Obviously, Digital Foundry is going to do those tests, and they're going to blow this whole situation wide open. So, my opinion is, why not come out there and reveal what exactly makes your console tick? Even the Xbox Scorpio, I give Microsoft credit here. Even they know it's going to be a 4K machine, so they gave us some specs ahead of time for a console that is primarily centered on boosting up specs. So I don't see why Nintendo is not confident to give us that information. The only thing I can suspect is maybe they're scared of doing so, because I assume there was one trailer that they showed there that had some awful frame rate. So I assume there's going to be some frame rate issues, maybe with some certain games, or the console's going to be underpowered as everyone is suspecting. Next up is no region locking. That's good. This actually confused me a little bit because they brought it up, but I thought they were going to bring it up in a negative light, but it was a positive. I cannot knock Nintendo for saying that they aren't allowing region locking on their console. That's pretty good, actually. Because, I mean, you can import, play all your games. It's a very good plus for Nintendo, and I can't knock them for that. So, next we have paying for online. This is not a positive, but everyone's in this argument. Oh, Sony and Microsoft are doing it. Microsoft started the trend. Blah, blah, blah. Look, listen. Just because someone else is doing something wrong doesn't mean it's right. You ever heard that old saying? Two wrongs don't make a right? This is the same case here. Because Nintendo is charging for online, it doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it right that Sony's doing it. It doesn't make it right that Microsoft's doing it. I even gave the PS3 some praise, even though they had shitty servers, that at least they had free online. It's not a good practice at all. Nintendo just wants some of that paid subscription money, and you know they really want it. So that's what they're going for here. That's the only reason. So let's continue on. Let's see. You get free NES games and other goodies through the paid online services. That's a positive. I can't knock that. Same thing that PSN Plus is doing. You get free games each month. Even though PS Plus is filled with indie crap now on PS4, I can say that this is a good incentive for Nintendo in the very least. So let's move on. Online lobby and voice chat is a paid application. This is bullshit. It's now people might argue, and you know it's gonna happen. People might argue that, well, you have Skype and you have Discord, so why are you complaining about voice chat not being used in game? Well, there is one good reason actually, and that's because they took it out of the Wii U. They implemented it back in the Switch. And now you have to fucking pay for voice chat. Do you know how stupid this is? You really know how stupid that is? That's so dumb. That's so dumb. And I know maybe people are thinking this is going to be tied to the paid online, but you have to use some app in order to use this. It's just so ridiculous. It tells me that it's not going to be installed on the console initially, and you have to pay for it somehow, so it might sound like a subscription service, which is stupid. Let's not kid ourselves here. I'm going to keep it real. I'm going to keep it 100. That is dumb. If you want to make me use Discord even more over that, then of course I'm going to use it, because you have to pay for the fucking voice chat. Oh my god. Alright, so let's move on. The Joy-Con controllers are mad expensive. Why in the ever-loving name of God are the controllers $80? Dude, they look so small. I was discussing this last night. They look so small, and if the incentive of the Switch is to carry it around with you, as a mobile device too, what if you lose a controller? Humans are very fallible. They lose shit. It just happens. You think that you won't lose something, but you do, and you can. And it's like, if you lose a controller, that's like $80 down the drain. That's so dumb. Oh my god. I'm literally face palming right now, because controllers are just getting retardedly expensive. It's like, I don't want a controller that is almost equivalent to a full price deluxe bundle of a video game. I would rather buy the game and have the controllers dispensable, so I can go out and maybe buy one later if I'm going to play with friends. I don't want a controller to be as almost expensive as the game is. That's some of the problems that I had with the PS4 controllers. But you know what? They went down in price. These are just stupidly expensive. And another negative I would say is that it's just, the controllers they focus like way too much on these things. Like, they have the sensors on them so you can scan the amiibos. Maybe that's why they're so expensive, but at the same time, them being overpriced like that, I thought the Wii U touchscreen was worse, but this takes the cake here. So I'm going to move on to the storage space. 32 gigs of storage. That's like half the equivalent of a full-on retail AAA game on the PC, a multiplat. That's like half of that. So that internal storage space just screams highway robbery to me. It's like you probably have to go out and get some micro SD cards in order to get more storage, which I assume is going to be the catch. You have to go out and pay for that stuff in order to get more space. Games are getting big these days. I don't know why the internal storage space is so low. Jesus Christ. Alright, so we're going to move on to the presentation itself and some highlights that I have in my notes here. Alright, let's get to the first key point here, and that is no solid information about some of the launch titles or what is specifically launching at a certain date. I already know that some games aren't going to make it at launch. They sort of played it up showing them, but not really giving any solid dates. I think Breath of the Wild is the only thing that I saw that's definitely coming out on launch. Maybe some other titles as well, but in some of the trailers, they really didn't show a date at the end, which was weird. You know what I mean? It's like Nintendo is probably going to go down this path of maybe 5 or 4 launch games on the Nintendo Switch, And that's about it. I mean, realistically speaking, that seems to be the road they're going down. So their launch titles don't really have a lot of solid information. Maybe you could find some now today because they released some information afterwards. But in that conference, the only one I saw that had a solid date on launch was Breath of the Wild. And that's about it. There was too much focus on the Joy-Con. So they spent a lot of time putting gimmicky bullcrap about cowboys shooting Nintendo Joy-Cons at each other and all this wacky stuff. And when I see this and I think of a presentation, you obviously want to get the most important information out there as soon as possible before you move on to some fluff. I have done presentations in the past before. I have taken classes on presentations. I know what I'm talking about when it comes to presentations. You don't want too much fluff in the beginning of your conference and them fiddling around with the Joy-Con. I just think that this controller made it overly complicated to explain. It felt like it needed to be in a blog post explaining all the intricacies of the Joy-Con because there's so much stuff there. Apparently there's scanners on it where you can scan amiibos. All this stuff seems rather intricate, so it seems like you want it elsewhere for other eyes to see, and it seems like they spent a lot of time on this subject, which just sort of padded the show, especially with the whole gimmicky commercial bits they were showing with the Joy-Con. Man, people aren't going to be playing with this controller when they're out partying or at barbecues. Some of this stuff is overtly exaggerated. I'm just keeping it real with you. It's very exaggerated, and I think maybe they should have put this pertinent information elsewhere instead of on the stage because it seemed to waste time from what's really important at a video game presentation, which is the video games, not the controllers. I mean, it's nice to show them off and see how they look, but you're not going to be focused way too much on the controllers at a video game presentation, in my opinion. So we're moving on to that $300 price tag. When it comes to this, readily thinking, I mean, does the price justify the Nintendo Switch? And obviously, with that low amount of games, I have to say no. I mean, even the PS2 had a lot more launch titles than the Nintendo Switch from what I'm seeing. That's not good enough. I don't think that the games that they have on display now justifies the cost, because $300, I mean, that's, you know, you got to be asking for a little bit more for $300, you know. What type of specs does your console run? What type of games does your console run? It's not rocket science. And I don't think that the games that they showed justifies the cost. That's what I think about the pricing for the Nintendo Switch. I mean, it's not bad, but it's certainly not great with what they showed off at this press conference. So we're going to move on to the games themselves. I'm going to just skim through this quick because some of these games, don't take this the wrong way, but I really don't care about them. I'm just going to be perfectly honest with you. So we have the 1-2 Switch, successor to Wii Sports. I don't care. We have ARMS, which is this wacky fighting game where at first I thought it was JoJo, you know. I thought people were pulling out their stands and shit. Or, you know, I thought it was JoJo. It looked crazy. It looked like it could be fun for maybe like 2 hours, and then you put it down and you never play it again. Super Mario Odyssey. They showed Mario in a city, which was pretty funny. Everyone was making memes about it. Grand Theft Mario. That kind of made me laugh a little bit, to be honest, to see that game, but I haven't played Mario in years. I'm not the biggest Mario fan either. I liked Super Mario Bros. 3, and that was the last Mario game that I played. I'm being brutally honest with you guys. So we have No More Heroes 3. they didn't announce a date or a trailer. They just showed a picture, and Suda51 came out and announced it. Personally, I actually love No More Heroes. I think I have No More Heroes Heroes Paradise on my PS3. Almost platinum that game too. I love that franchise. It's just fun going around as a character chopping people's heads off with a lightsaber. I think that's the only announcement I really am kind of pumped for. But I wouldn't go out and buy this console for just one game. That's a mistake. So next we have FIFA. I don't give a shit about FIFA. I'm sorry, FIFA fans. I don't care about FIFA or EA and their bull crap. Next we have Xenoblade 2. I never played Xenoblade at all, so I don't have an opinion on Xenoblade. There you go. Next we have Splatoon 2. I can see why this game got a sequel. At first I thought it was a remaster or something. You know how it looked and everything, because it looks just like the first game. You can't deny that. It looks just like the first one. But I mean, it's good because Splatoon has an audience, and obviously people were playing the crap out of the first one, so it got some popularity. I can see why it's getting a sequel, but personally, I'm not too impressed by Splatoon. I'm not too impressed by it because I never played the first one. Next, we have this bullet point, which is weird, but I'm going to explain it. I think Square Enix came on stage and they announced some sort of side-scrolling RPG, JRPG that has a weird name, but they didn't show much, and I already forgot about the name, so there you go. Next, we have Fire Emblem Warriors. I think Fire Emblem Muso. I really don't have a good affinity for Muso games, and I never played Fire Emblem, so I'm sort of not interested. And last but not least, we have Shin Megami Tensei whatever. Shin Megami Tensei gold-plated nigga, whoever that guy was in the trailer. I mean, it looked cool. I always wanted to play the Shin Megami Tensei series, but I never got around to it. I always wanted to play Nocturne because that game had Dante, and Dante from Devil May Cry, original Dante, is pretty hype. But unfortunately, because I haven't played it, I don't have much of an opinion. And Breath of the Wild, Legend of Zelda, I mean, it looked pretty amazing for what it is. If that was all in game, that trailer alone probably has some people sold. I would say the two best looking games, or the two best looking announcements rather, let me reiterate that, was Breath of the Wild and No More Heroes for me. A lot of the other games I could really give a shit about, or I have no affinity or care for whatsoever because I hardly either played them or I just grew out of stuff like Mario. That's how I feel. I mean, it's inevitable. It happens. Nintendo, when it comes to competition, their competition always just runs them over. And it shouldn't be like that, because if you think about Nintendo's history with the GameCube, to me personally, the GameCube was great. It had great first party, it had great third party support. And I think because Nintendo has the tendency to have weak specs, that the third party is going to die off eventually, like they did with the Wii U. It's just inevitable. And that's going to be a detriment. Overall, my main impressions of this conference was that it was underwhelming. I was not impressed. I was expecting that, but I was not impressed. They did a few things right, but mostly all the rest of the conference was pretty boring. I have to say it was boring for a conference. It also ended way too abruptly. I mean, they announced a few games and they peeled out. Time to pack it up and go home. Let's have these limited pre-orders so we can generate this fake hype of the Nintendo Switch selling out so people can go ahead and waste their money on it. And that's all that is, really. So, I would say this conference was definitely an F. It was an F for me. um, because to sell a console, you need to have more games. You just can't have 5 games. You should have all the third party people coming out, showing off what's going to be on the console. I don't even care if it's a still image of a screenshot of what's going to be on the Switch. Just announce something for it. You see, people, as this final point, I am not sold on consoles with barely any games anymore, and the console is expensive. I just think that as a smart consumer, you shouldn't pour your money out on something that delivers you the less amount of content possible. That's how I feel about the whole argument of people saying that, well, everyone's just haters about the Switch. I think I gave perfectly valid reasons why I'm not buying it. Why, in terms of competition, I think that the other parties like Microsoft and Sony, they have the edge when it comes to delivering either multiplats or exclusives. More in Sony's favor, of course, when it comes to exclusives, but you get the idea. So, this is Renegade Operative signing off. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this sleepy reaction to Nintendo's press conference or imminent burial. I mean, a lot of people think that already, but I'm just giving my thoughts. They had a few highlights, but that didn't stop the conference from being a slog. I will see you guys next time. Renegade Operative out.